Ryan.
Today we are learning basketball with Matt Powers, aka Draft Pal on Twitter, the co-founder and editor of Swish Theory, formerly of The Stepien, covers the NBA draft with Swish. Can't wait to dive into this Swish Theory's official 2025 NBA draft guide. Shout out to Ross, shout out to Matt, shout out to the whole team. Put in a lot of work to make this super cool. One of the most creative looking and just detailed scouting reports you're going to find on the 2025 NBA draft. So super excited to just dive into all of that. But first, how you doing today, Matt?
Doing all right, man. Yeah, in boiling hot New York City right now, where our AC got recalled for a black mold issue. So then
Oh no.
you have the fans just like on full blast right now, but it's been a little rough making it through there. But yeah, other than that, doing great. Excited for draft week here.
Oh man, I'm sorry to hear that. It must be hot
sweating
there.
profusely through this.
It's from all the hot takes that are about to come out, Matt, with the top four, which we're about to dive into. But before we get into all things draft, we got to shout out Oklahoma City Thunder. Congratulations to the team, the fans, the players, the city, just everyone. Huge congrats! What a game! What a moment! Sad to see Halliburton go down that way. No one wants to see the finals kind of come down to an injury like that. And, we wish him a full speedy recovery, but, it was still an incredible game. Pacers, stayed right in it till halftime, a game 7 there. And it was cool to see them, give an effort. So got to give a shout out to Shea and J-Dub and Chet off the top. And then Kevin Durant also the same day traded to Houston. What a day for the NBA. About a week later, after the Desmond Bane blockbuster deal, all of which are happening during the finals. Like, is anyone in the league office thinking like maybe we should wait with some of these trades? Maybe we should push something off and keep the focus on the games at hand. But I digress. We'll dive into a little bit of that trade later around the Suns' new pick range around the 10th pick. They got in that deal, so that makes them a player in this draft. But let's just dive in here to the Swish Theory draft guide. So I'm going to lay out a little bit and let Matt walk us through what the team was up to here. I got to be a part of it. I wrote two of the descriptions for Trey Johnson and Danny Wolf, and I know Matt wrote many of the descriptions as well. And just walk us through all the creativity that goes through this, because the coolest thing is the filters and being able to play around with that to figure out what your team needs. So walk us through what we can find here.
Yeah, sure. First of all, on the very top, you can drag and click these icons, which is fun, and like X out of them.
Great detail.
Interactive banner up top. I think shout out to Ross for that one. But yeah, as you can see, we got our board 1 through 59. After that, the consensus of 13 different draft analysts that submitted their boards. Some hot takes in there, as you can see. But at the top, we wanted to make this interactive and kind of you can create your own big board for your team or your own preferences, what you're looking for, or type of player that you're interested in. And the way you can do that really is playing around with these filters, the yellow tab here. If you want to open that, Ryan. So we came up with 6 different categories, our draft team, that kind of relate to how you contribute on a basketball court, different like skill categories. So like rim protections, like kind of an obvious one, like how well you protect the rim, if you're blocking shots, like getting in the way of like the lane, stuff like that. But other than that, we have advantage creator, prospects like Dylan Harper or Jeremiah Fears, play finisher, more like your Trey Johnsons or Ace Baileys, advantage extender, the like smart passers. Cooper Flag qualifies for basically all of these, but he's also an amazing advantage extender. Rim protector, as mentioned, on-ball defender, pretty self-explanatory. Off-ball defender, pretty self-explanatory. So you can kind of raise these thresholds, and it'll sort the list automatically based on who qualifies for those thresholds. So it's kind of like, if you're familiar with Bart Torvik, the like NCAA stats site where you can kind of query based on different statistics. This is that but for different types of contribution levels. So yeah, you can see like if that's the type of player looking for, what you got, advantage creator.
Yeah, I put in the Magic idea I had the other day of like what kind of prospect might the Magic still look for. Maybe someone who can create a little bit and play finish, like a shooter who can create and pass. And in the draft range of 25th pick, you're looking at 3 players that fall into that range between Walter Clayton, Cams Jones, Javon Small, one or two of which are already rumored targets for Orlando. So a cool little idea that just to find players that match with your team's needs, and who knows the team's needs better than the fans and the people up close watching it all day. So that's the fun of the draft, is you try to find these guys that could help you long term and short term and build part of the culture. So really cool feature to play around with there.
Yeah, and I also took a stab at my own list for team needs. If you click that orange tab, I'm not sure what filters I'd put for the Magic, for example, but probably something relatively similar.
For sure. And, you would think there's probably a few different ways that you could go with team needs. And look at that. It is the same
list,
filter.
Yeah.
So a similar idea there. And, to take another team here, let's see maybe what Brooklyn's up to. They could go a lot of different directions, but, based on their needs, this looks like, take a swing on a high-end talent.
Yeah, some kind of like someone who can create advantages and play finish and, pass a little bit. As a Brooklyn Nets fan, that's what I'm encouraging. Hopefully they take a swing on Collin Murray-Boyles, but we'll see what happens.
And it looks like when you choose the team need, or when you choose the team, it automatically changes the filters for you to those team needs.
Yeah.
So that part's really nice as well.
And re-ranks the list. Yeah, so that's the players.
This is I just clicked another one. This was Chicago, I believe, right?
Yeah, and for Dallas, I did it, so it just results in Coop.
There you go. That's a good fit for Dallas off the top.
Good fit, my opinion. But yeah, this was fun to work with. Again, shout out Ross for actually like implementing all these like crazy ideas. But I don't know. I have fun playing around with it myself. So hopefully people
absolutely. I don't know if there's another tool like this on the web with everything included. I mean, when you combine like the aggregate draft order of the ranking between the Swish Theory scouting team, the creativity of the site, the filter access to be able to make your own queries of the guide, some notes on team needs, some notes on what defines these archetypes and roles. Like it's just got a little bit of everything. So, great. Got to give one last shout out to the whole team, and it was a lot of fun to be a part of it. And let's look at just for instance, like Collin Murray-Boyles. Here's how his profile looks out. What kind of stands out here? You have a quick little summary that shows you all the ratings and something of like a projection of that rating. How maybe his advantage extender could be an all-star rating. His defense jumps off the page as an all-star rating. Is that a projection? Is that an expectation?
So it's supposed to be like at their peak, the contribution level. So I was going back and forth for advantage creator to give him starter level or not, but he really advanced so much as a driver this year. He had good like volume as a driver and just like creating his own shot a lot better than the year before, playing more on ball, a lot of like isolation plays. But yeah, obviously elite defensive prospect. He's not the greatest vertical athlete. That's why he's only 75 for rim protector. But otherwise, he's just like a standing, very physical defender, very quick processor, kind of just like sees plays as they develop. He's still basically freshman aged, just a young sophomore, one of the most productive players in the country. But yeah, this was Ahmed Jama who did this right up here, covering all those points. Yeah, and we got video also.
Pretty main combination of scouting tools. Shout out Ahmed holding it down for the CMB crowd. And speaking of the big boards and rankings, I wanted to shout out CMB here because you have them ranked too, and second overall. And the Swish team as a whole, I would say, is probably higher than consensus just across the board. I have them 8th, and I honestly want to be higher. Like I find myself everyone in the 7 through 13 like late lottery range. I find myself like I feel like I really like these guys. Like I want to be higher on them, and yet I just kind of like some of these other guys more. And it's hard to give flowers to everybody that way and that just shows kind of the depth of the class that I'd probably underrated a little earlier in this process in terms of the number of potential stars. And I think it's a pretty good number. I mean, between the high end number of players that ranked really highly in BPM and impact ratings, like just across the board. Like it's one of the deepest draft classes by impact ratings. And to me, it's just a lot of unknowns. Like it feels like there's a lottery full of potential stars, and the floors could kind of fall out on a few of them too. So I'm super interested to see kind of what plays out and whose maybe holes end up being glaring and stop people from development versus who actually can fix these holes. Because someone like CMB, incredible prospect. I mean, just incredible defender, incredible two-way feel. And the 3-point shot is more of a question mark. That's probably the biggest question mark as to why he might not go top 5. He might fall a little bit in the lottery, but he could be the best defender of the draft. He could be one of the best downhill forces in the draft and a really smart playmaker and just really, really dangerous once he gets a little head of steam. So, I'm on top of what you described about his game, just curious why you have him ranked second overall. And you also have VJ Edgecombe and Dylan Harper, Khaman, Maluach rounding out the top 5. Do you also rank them in tiers, or is that just sort of the general consensus order of, for the majority of teams, I would recommend this player as the best player available at each slot?
So yeah, I mess around a lot with how I do my rankings. Last year I was trying to kind of like, my goal was to kind of like catch lightning in a bottle by ranking players by productivity, feel, and athleticism, like trying to combine those factors into one grade, which led to Zach Edey being my number 1 prospect. But for this year, I'm more like doing hand projections. I am trying to just go like simplify it as much as possible, just almost like, what do you expect their offensive contribution to be, and like say estimated plus minus, or like their impact on the game at their peak on offense and defense, and just put a value in for each. And I did that at an 80th percentile outcome, because I like being pretty pro risk, and like I want to ceiling chase, because that's how you really change the profile of your franchise. But I actually did it so it's like a cascading effect. So it starts out like number 1, Cooper Flagg, his rating is 100% ceiling based. But the further you go down the list, the more it becomes tied to the median ratings that I gave for people. So like once you get past the lottery, you're basically, my rankings are almost only reflecting of people's median outcomes. So I kind of like changed the risk rating for my board. So I have basically very high risky players at the top that I think. I don't even really expect Collin Murray-Boyles to shoot necessarily for him to reach this level of output. I just really buy his driving, his touch. I like Dylan Harper a lot. I do worry about Dylan's non-rim 2-point percentage. He takes a lot of like kind of rough mid-range pull-ups that could be sticky if teams just kind of sit back and like give him that. I think it could sap his efficiency a little bit. And just not the same level of defender, obviously, as CMB. I don't think he's going to be like a bad defender, but just not necessarily a very positive one if you're projecting like, again, plus minus impact. So yeah, Edgecombe, I feel like watching the playoffs kind of was a good proof of concept for VJ, and just like Oklahoma City was dominating the turnover battle with everyone, right? And VJ is like such an incredible event creator. He'll start a lot of transition opportunities for you and finish a lot of transition opportunities for you. I just think he's a really high field player. Yeah, those are my ratings for him there. So he's just like really solid across the board. Doesn't really have any major glaring weaknesses. He even like improved his handle a lot. Yeah, you maybe even could give him a higher rating for rim protector, because he's like such a great help side guy. He has some like pretty crazy chase down blocks. But yeah, you talk about like the 2-way impact. I think he's just like, he's such an athlete. I trust the shot. I don't know how you feel about his like, I think it's better than the 3-point percentage showed. He's always been a really solid free throw shooter, and I like the form in general. I don't know. But yeah, he's a smart player. Good assist to turnover ratio. Like, he brings a lot of stuff that you like.
Yeah, great notes on VJ. I mean, I'm definitely a fan, and by the upside, defensive playmaker, like smart connectors, smart field. Definitely think he's developed as the year went on and the game slowed down for him. The decision making seemed to improve. The something of a, let's say, crowded backcourt of not necessarily the cleanest fit complementary skill wise. And when he got kind of more touches and more space, he really thrived. Like, the athleticism jumps off the page. Obviously, he jumps off the page literally, like with these blocks that you talk about, and the playmaking defensively, like super high on that athleticism. I think the combination, like, that's the most bankable trait, but all of the skills that he's shown with that defensive impact and that athleticism is really what makes it an easy sell to kind of buy that two-way impact where, like you said, I think the three-point shooting is legit, and he's shown enough to at least think that can develop as a real, threat from 3-point range. No one's really stopping him with that first step burst, so he can penetrate the paint. And if he can kind of continue to develop that drive and kick, read and react playmaking, that's a downhill threat that, when you add a three ball to a downhill threat, it's just really hard to guard. And as you said, like, these defensive connectors that can dribble, pass, and shoot, like, teams cannot have enough of them, especially if they are flanking your current superstars. That stat or that tweet that went viral this weekend was something about Caruso being a two-time champion, KCP being a two-time champion, Drew Holiday being a two-time champion in the 2020s, and those three guards being the only two-time champions in the 2020s of any players, and they all happen to be high-end impact defenders who are not black holes offensively. They all bring a little juice offensively as well, where it might not be the cleanest scoring, but like, for the most part, they're versatile scorers, or they can hit the three ball. They can make good team first decisions with the ball, especially with lower usage. So, Edgecombe comes to mind as another one of those guys at the very least. And there's a little upside for more. I mean, that athleticism with that downhill drive and kick, as I just kind of mentioned, like, there is an upside play there too, where he is a great, like, combination of high two-way floor with really impressive upside. So definitely a fan of VJ. I think Philly should just take him 3. I think that's like it's like, I also would say that if we were doing a mock, that's who I would most think Daryl Morey would take, based on like all of his selections, based on like the win now two-way impact that he brings, and then that upside we hit on. Like, definitely could see Philly doing that. Was there any like top 5 rumors or buzz, I guess, that you kind of really want to see happen? Like, do you like the idea of Dylan Harper teaming up with Wemby? Would you rather maybe see him get his own team in Brooklyn with one of these trade rumors? How high could CMB go? How low could he fall? Like, I don't really see him rumored top 5. It's a lot more of the guards, like maybe Concanipple, Ace Bailey, Trey Johnson kind of go off the board first, and then we get all the bigs in some random order. We don't really know yet. Any kind of storylines pop out?
Yeah, I mean, I've always thought that, like, the number one thing I want to pair Wemby with is speed and, like, rim pressure, because, like, if he's spacing the floor and he's pulling the other rim protector out there, Dylan Harper's going to absolutely feast in the paint, right? Like, if you have to, I mean, that's why I don't have Dylan top 2 or even top 3. Is I worry he'll become a little predictable, just like clogging the paint against him. But if you have Wemby spacing the floor, I mean, I have been a little lower on, like, Steph Castle. Just, I'm worried about him as a play finisher. I am, like, not really sure how those guys, if they're like him, Fox, and Castle, from, like, their combined spacing will look like. I think could be, I don't know. It sounds like there might be a move involved there. But yeah, as a Brooklyn Nets fan, I am kind of fine with them hanging at 8 and just seeing who falls from there. It sounds like they would probably take Ace Bailey, who I'm not as much of a fan of if he falls. Hoping for CMB, obviously, but I mean, I think there's a lot of good options, and, like, even Ace, I still have as, like, a lottery talent. Like, I see, like, star outcomes for him still. I think this draft is, like, pretty deep in, like, starter type players. I think even, like, if you get to, like, the 20s and, like, guys like Cam Jones and Max Shulga as, like, rotation type bets that late. So I think anywhere, yeah, I don't know. I've gotten, like, higher and higher on this draft the more I read into it, really. So I'm very much a just, like, see who falls to you type deal for this draft.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I've gotten higher on it overall, and what's crazy is like it's more dropouts than I've ever seen in any class because of the NIL influence and the opportunities for guys to stay, develop their game, and probably be better off financially even through that decision. So it makes a lot of sense for them. Hopefully, the college game it's even higher quality because you get all this talent coming back. And despite like I don't know 20 or 30 names dropping out, this is still a really really impressive class where, like you said, I mean, there's legit rotation players, fringe starters, like guys you could see carving out a role like into the 30s at least in this class, and it's super interesting in that aspect. Is there anyone that you notice you're much higher on than the Swish Theory team per se? Like maybe that's not necessarily your guy, but just you kind of see the case a little more than average.
Yeah, that's a good question. I have our high-low boards up actually, so I
There you
can
go.
tell. I was tied for highest on CMB. We had a few guys with him number two, hence him being number three overall. I was kind of more down the middle this time. I was highest on Chaz Lanier, and like that's it. And yeah, I was pretty high on Maluach. I have number five, so that's among the highest. I think Ahmed had him number two, maybe.
There you go.
So he would be the highest there. But I love Maluach. I wrote a report on him. I really love Thomas Sorber also. I have him number 10 or 11.
Yeah,
Um,
that I kind of wanted to ask you about those two. What separates them as some of the bigs in this class, and they're kind of ranked among the bigs. Derek Queen and Noah Sen. You also have in between there. You have CMB a little higher than both. What stands out because I know Sorber. It looks projects to be a defensive anchor, like the biggest player in the class and one of the smartest bigs in the class. Like he blocks and steals everything. He doesn't foul while he's doing it. He's got the longest wing or the third longest wingspan to height ratio in the class. Um, at 8.8 inches, I think, or 8.6 inches in terms of his wingspan length being longer than his height. And he's already 6'9", standing tall. So he's got like a 7'6" or whatever wingspan out there. And he knows how to use it smartly without fouling. Like that combination as a defender just screams like defensive anchor. And then you think like maybe he's this like prodding big by that description, and then you watch him and he's like just an explosive huge tank out there flying around blocking everything. And then he shows some really impressive playmaking feel. So you could get a strong defender anchor on one hand, playmaking hub on the other. Those are some of the things I like about Sorber, and I actually ended up being higher on him than I first thought I would be. Like I had him like, I don't know, let's say like mid lottery or so, but I ended up top 10 with him, like ninth, right in between Asenu, CMB, Sorber, and Newell there for my top 10 in Maluach and Queen. I kind of had that was probably the toughest part for me was ranking that late lottery 7 to 13, because ultimately I think it comes down to factors that don't really have to do with the player as much as just the team situation and who they're willing to invest in, who do they already have on the roster, who's got the opportunity to build around. So like I view them all in the same tier where the answer is really like what team is drafting, what do they need, what player type do they generally scout and like and build around. And so I think that shows that I'm generally equally impressed by a lot of these guys. But Sorber's defense as a D anchor playmaker really stands out. Similar to CMB, but just more of a true big in that style, and less of an on-ball guy, of course, offensively. But so that's some of the reason I like Sorber. Why are you high on him? And also how Maluach? Tell me a little bit about what you see in his potential that has him top 5 for you.
Yeah, I love Sorber. He's the only player I really actually like got to see live and up close this year, and he's just like so physical. I love players, especially like post defenders that know exactly how to like push the pressure points. I've talked about him. He's like, I don't want to call him like a dirty player. He's not a dirty player, but he's like smart at like knowing exactly how to hit those pain points at you on your back, and
Oh
like
man.
he's maximizing every inch of his strength, right? He just knows exactly how to like be physical. He's such a smart player. I said he kind of reminds me of Al Horford, how he uses his strength and like is able to like he's a really smart passer and just like high field player. Yeah, I have one stat from him that's kind of crazy. There's a stat like on-off stats. So like when he's on the court versus off the court, if you played a full game with him on the court versus off the court for Georgetown, um, when he's on the court, they would allow 8 fewer points per game in the paint than when he was off, which is the most of any big in the class. Collin Murray-Boyles was 7.1, he's 7.8. So that's like he's massively improving his team rim protection. That means he grades out really well in a lot of the on off metrics this year, as far as the team impact he had. I view him kind of like he might not be a huge stats guy, but he'll be somebody that just like contributes to winning in so many little ways. Yeah, just a smart on the margins type player. And then Maluach, yeah, I didn't realize we have a little bit of a disagreement on that one. I really trust Khaman's like shot. That's like I think I'm like among the highest on his shooting potential. I put him as a 100 play finisher because he's an amazing lob threat too, like one of the best lob threats we've seen in like NCAA history. Is like true shooting is like off the charts. I think the big question mark is like, can he pass well enough like to be functional on offense, like just doing the basic stuff? And I think he showed some advances throughout the year. The defensive rebounding needs to improve. I think that will always just be okay. But I just really trust his scoring, and I think he'll be a really good shot blocker. He's just an enormous human being. Yeah. How come you're a little bit lower than the rest on college?
Yeah, it's like I was just saying, I don't want to be. I just like it's one of those things. It's like all-star voting. It's like only 15 guys can make it, and I'm sad about number 16. It's like I feel like I what's funny is I started off a little lower on him. I thought he was a little more of like a prodding big from what I had seen, more so internationally, I guess. But the more I watched him with Duke and got to see the play finishing, your data viz, your graphs, you put out some impressive work showing his rim finishing, that lob threat, that alley-oop percentage, just the incredible rim percentage, like off the charts, like really has sold me as a rim roller. And then I did grow, like I liked his defensive instincts and his hands that I saw defensive side. I know he's had some, concerns about his hands offensively when it's not a lob, and that's a little bit of a concern for some people. But you've shown me some of his shooting touch as well, and that brings a little intrigue there. Where I think he actually has one of the highest floors in the draft, and that's why I have him in this tier. Like I think you're getting a bankable rim roller, a bankable defender with a little bit of shooting touch, and if that becomes like a pick and pop midi, a pick and pop corner three, stretch big at all, that's a really lethal two-way D&3 impact there. I'm not as much of a believer in the shot, I guess, in terms of that level of it, but I definitely am fully like I see there's potential there that is possible. Like I don't see him creating a ton on the ball, but I definitely can see like he could potentially develop a 3-point shot if he works on that. So, you have a lot of good reasons to draft him, and I think it's a really high floor. Like it makes sense to me if like the Hawks are on the board and you get Trae Young, like the ultimate lob thrower. Like I would be much higher on Maluach for a team that has a creator, a floater lob threat guy like Trae Young already. That Clint Capella relationship, that like Clint Capella, like it has to just he just fell like into the perfect situation his whole career. Like he got drafted by the James Harden Rockets, and then he gets traded to the Trae Young Hawks as a rim roller, rim protector. Like that's the kind of thing I want to see for Maluach, that for him to find the CP3 to like his DeAndre Jordan in that rim roller esque type of role. But in terms of why I'm lower, I guess I'm just a little lower on the ceiling of all that. Like I definitely see high end two-way impact. Definitely think he can be a long-term starter center. And I just kind of think the potential of just about everyone higher on my list is just, I'm a little more into the upside for everyone else. Asa Newell has been someone I view as very versatile. I think his game's going to end up being a malleable skill set at the next level, where I think he will be an active defender with that defensive versatility, the offensive rebounding, a little bit of post up, a little bit of catch and shoot 3-point shot, just as options. But I think he will bring two-way versatility. and that is why I have him one spot higher. But I could just as easily see someone make the case for Maluach if it makes more sense for that team's role. Like if a team needs a 4 to win now, probably would lean towards Newell. But if a team could use a rim roller defensive anchor type, like there's a bankable guy in Maluach just sitting there. And similarly for Sorber, like I believe in Sorber's defense and playmaking and the potential of that just a little bit higher than Maluach, but they are very similar, like tiers, the same tiers, similar like level of players, I guess, in my mind. Where I would say, for me personally, I have molded my big board to be at the top. We're looking for the legends, the generational guys, the Wembys or the Flags to a degree lower than that. But then I'm looking for an offensive engine, a scoring creator, a guy I can rely on to create a good decision for my team every single time down the floor in a heliocentric way, like, or at least on a high usage, high volume of touches way. And that's where Dylan Harper stands out. That's where, to me, Danny Wolf, who I've talked a ton about on the pod, kind of stands out as that potential offensive engine. That's why I have him ranked third, is that with him being a plus defender. I know I'm much higher on him than consensus, so that's the odd man out for me. But I would say he's right up there for me as just one of the most reliable potential offensive engines in the draft, who I know I can run 40 pick and rolls through him or as the roller or the roll man. Not to get all into Wolf, but the scoring versatility, the footwork, the handle, the passing, just a big fan. That's why I'm higher than him. And then I also view Trey Johnson in that realm and Knipple in that realm as like potential scoring creators. Trey Johnson more of the scoring, Knipple a little bit more of everything. Really just the idea of, is there on-ball upside here as a primary or secondary option for a team? I have that just a little bit above all-star and all defense, where I'm trying to project upside for guys. I can, at the very least, pull up my big board here as well, and I can pull yours up too. But just to lay it out, I have the tiers like that. Flag in his own tier, superstar, ceiling with an all-star or all defense and or type of floor. Dylan Harper kind of in a 1B tier, slightly above the rest for me, but probably a little closer to that third tier than Flag for me personally. For me, 3 through 14 is the whole lottery. I think all these guys could be either, really it's like 3 through about 8 for me. I think could be some sort of offensive engine, including CMB as like a downhill playmaker, that a little bit of that upside. Maybe more of like a playmaker than a scorer, but we'll see what translates there. But I think that's more of the engine side of things. And then once you get to Sorber, Newell, Maluach at 9, and even CMB and Noah too, that's more of the all defensive upside. And then right after that with Queen, Bailey, even maybe Behringer could be more on the all-star or all defensive too. The slashes are meant to be either or. So like the ceilings are, here's a potential ceiling. The floor is, here's the likelier floor, and probably is in that like 80% to 20% type of outcome type of idea as well. So I organize it by tiers, where the tiebreaker is more really about the team drafting as much as anything, but I still order by like upside and also expected realistic upside if everything kind of pans out the right way that it needs to for most prospects. But higher on Wolf, and I'm also higher on Asa Newell than most. I have finally come around to Joan Behringer. He's in my lottery now. I think he's gaining steam. Do you have any thoughts on any late risers like Behringer, or that are just, obviously Cedric Coward is maybe no longer a late riser. He's just late risen. He's going to get drafted pretty highly now. Any names pop out that you think might hear their names called a little earlier than expected, even maybe a couple months ago?
Yeah, those guys that you mentioned, I think the one I think is a pretty wide range for where he could go, just based on kind of like the boards I've seen. Even like, I feel like obviously draft Twitter has its own priorities separate from like NBA front offices, but I think there are a lot of like analytically friendly front offices who I think who might view things similarly to Draft Twitter in some ways, but I think I do Thero on Arkansas as someone.
Yeah,
I
glad you
don't know if
mentioned it.
I'd call him a late riser, but I could see him just somebody falling in love with him because I kind of described him as like what if Peyton Watson had touch and like a little more like dribble skills, could dribble at all. Who's like hell of a defender, just like super strong, really good drive threat. I'm definitely on board with Swish Theory here. Our consensus having him this high as a lottery pick. I
Yeah, I
think
ended up with him top 20 as well.
nice. Yeah, consensus has him still 33. On the 33 as an early second rounder, which I think would be just like way too low for the level of athlete he is. And drive threat. And he grew like 8 inches from high school to from late high school to college. So he was like an 80% free throw shooter in high school and like 35% from three or something like that. Before he had his big growth spurt. Yeah, those are my clips here. This is my write up. I wrote on here. But
I mean, the athleticism is off the page. I'm with you. Like, there's no way this guy can fall to the second round with that level of athleticism. Like, oh man, it's one of those things where you just like sit back for like 5 seconds and just look at the list of names you're looking at, and it's like, are you really about to take this like 6-foot guard who can kind of score over this guy? And sometimes that is the right answer if the guard is a nuclear off the charts scorer, shooter, handler, something special. But like like you're just gonna have like, let's say a 6-foot light guard versus like just this uber athlete that can jump out the gym that like, come on. The explosiveness alone, I think, is going to get him noticed, is going to get him drafted relatively early. But this class is deep, full of good basketball players, and he probably is more of like the blank slate potential type of big wing explosive. Would you say he still kind of falls on that, risk reward more than maybe the proven all around talent that some of these other guys are?
Yeah, I mean he's a small forward, power forward, like 3.5, I would say, who can't really or hasn't shot in college very well, but he does have very good mid range touch. So there's like some hope that works out and that he can have that positional flexibility. But I mean, I kind of got higher on him this last watch because late season he was doing a lot of like change of pace driving, even like not just straight line drives. He is like a crazy free throw rate on his drives in particular. You don't have to close out on him. He's gonna like beat you to the basket with his like strength and athleticism regardless, and like provide some great help side rim protection. Can be an on ball defender. Obviously, you see the pretty high ratings there up top. Yeah, cool player.
Absolutely. No, he's definitely getting some notice here as the draft gets closer. I know that there's a few guards on here that have kind of either risen on Swish's side or maybe just getting a little more notice, but it seems to be a popular all-around guard type of choice. And I think the filters actually highlight this for guards like who you just mentioned, a Max Shoga or a Javon Small, something of like an all-around guard that brings a little bit of everything. And I thought you might have some thoughts on Javon, because that's a guy that you and I know Joe has a piece coming out on Swish's site on Javon soon, so got to give that a bump, give that a read, because Joe put him on the map a little bit for me, and it was you putting making me more aware as well some of your work. Just seeing this all around guard, like you check out his synergy play types, and like he's efficient across the board, like can shoot, explosive. What else do you like about Javon? Just seems like a complete guard.
Yeah, what I like a lot about him is not only did he have like huge assist numbers, like huge like really important like pull up shooting role. I think like 65% of his shots are pull ups. This is a stat from Joe's article that I've read, which is really good and coming out the next day or two. But he also like dunks a lot and blocks shots. So he's not like a complete zero, like athletically or like for vertical athleticism type things. Yeah, he had 15 dunks despite being like 6'1". So 62% of the rim, creating most of those. So like he was efficient inside, had a 1.1% block rate, but only fouled 1.7 times per 40 minutes. So he's just like, he does so many things without making mistakes on the court. Just really smart. he can play on or off ball, like a really smart cutter. Um, he's awesome. He's someone that I would not be surprised if I have him, what, like 20?
Yeah, you've got Javon
21?
Small at 21 and Max Shulga 25. I've got
Yeah.
Javon at 20, same range, and then a little lower on Shulga, about 30 something, 37 with some of the other guards. But honestly, could see myself being a little higher on him in theory. The
Yeah.
more you look at it, because at just the all around skill set. I mean, I think that just being able to be a complete guard at this point is almost a prerequisite just to make a rotation.
Yeah. You got Cam Jones in there as well, another like just strong all around guard, upperclassman who I was tweeting about. Had like over a 3-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. Kind of drastically changed his role from being more off ball to on ball this year. Never like didn't draw hardly any free throws, like a comically low free throw rate, but amazing getting to the cup regardless. Can't awful vertical, like a 24-inch vertical or something like that. So he's just not a great vertical athlete. He's not like Javon Small out there dunking on people, but he's so shifty. His change of pace is like elite. He's a really good drive and kick guy. Can set up a little offense. The 3-point shot's been a little up and down, but he kind of had a really tough role this year. Just really, basically heliocentric player for Marquette. So I think scaling him down could regain some of that efficiency. And he's like a pretty big player. His standing reach is like basically the same as Trey Johnson's, despite being shorter than him. So yeah, I like Cam a lot. Cam, Shulga, Ben Saraf too is pretty interesting. Another like kind of well-rounded guard prospect.
Yeah,
right
his
there.
passing flair, as it says right here, the passing flashes are real fun. It reminds one watching a little Ricky Rubio, just a tad with the international. Not to throw an international point guard comp out there, but it's just cool, effective flair. As I've said before, like when the flair is just for good measure, like when it's not like trying to be showboaty, but like you just have that in your bag to throw a bounce pass with a little extra flair, like. That's the beauty of the game. Well, and what are your thoughts on a couple wings in kind of the projected middle of the first? Like, as like, would you lean like a good basketball player, as they say, more of the all around type, like a Jace Richardson, a Carter Bryant, maybe a Nick Clifford with his scoring versatility, or more of or a Cedric Coward or a Rasheer Fleming, some of these guys that bring more of like the wingspan, the 3-point potential. Do you think the league is at a point where the all around good basketball player is more coveted than the D and 3 wing, or do they both still have a place in the rotation if depending on the floor balance?
I think you need to be able to dribble a little bit and like make reads, make basic reads. That's kind of why I'm a little lower on Rasheer Fleming. I just don't have much faith in his handle at all. Why I'm a little lower on Asa Newell too. I think that's kind of like split opinion on his like drive and kick ability to punish any closeouts that he might get. So I kind of prefer the more well-rounded players. I mean, Cedric Coward I think is super interesting. His touch is just like otherworldly. I think even though Cedric has like he's not the strongest player, not the most like physical, his handle also is like okay for a guard, maybe not great for a guard. But it's improving. And his touch just like might be worth it. Like he is such a good shooting prospect for his size, for his wingspan, that I had a hard time keeping him out. I think I have him 13th, so firmly ladder pick for me.
So with the draft Thursday, who do you think is going to be the one that slips or the most overlooked or the one that we're all scratching our heads like how the heck did CMB fall to the Thunder that just won the championship and they're adding maybe a defensive player of the year to their roster full of defensive players of the year candidates, is it CMB because of the jump shot? And on the flip side, is there anyone projected in the second round that you think like is way criminally underrated and needs to go first? And maybe it's someone we've talked about, maybe it's someone we haven't gotten to yet. Who are some names that could either slip or really should be reached on?
Yeah, I mean, it really sounds like Ace Bailey is like his spot is very much at risk. I have
Oh yeah.
no idea where he's going to go. Based on like how his team is playing it close to the chest, it seems like there's a pretty wide range of outcomes there. Yeah, CMB also I have no idea because like there could be some very analytically minded team out there who just like who like they chase up the price a little bit. But yeah, as far as like Fuller's also, I don't know. I don't really see it with Liam McNeely, so I wouldn't be surprised if he fell a little bit just because
Mhm.
his like he's billed as a shooter and his shooting just like was not there this year. But as far as second rounders, I would take much earlier. I think Ryan Kalkbrenner is like incredibly underrated. He's
Oh yeah.
another like there should not be that much of a gap between him and Maluach, even though I think Maluach is still a much better prospect. But Kalkbrenner is amazing rim runner threat too. He's like catches really tough lobs, can finish in the post, make basic reads at least, and is an amazing drop defender. I mean, I probably was too low on it now, like talking about him. I had him 18. But he was an incredible rim protector without fouling at all. Just has kind of rebounding concerns. But yeah, he would definitely be my pick for second rounder. I think is underrated right now. How about yourself?
That's a great shout. He was one of my late risers as well. Finished in my top 20 for that reason. Like a sound big man, paint protector. Like the idea that he is another guy that could have DN3 potential is just rare for a center. I think that part's key. Like you don't really get guys that can actually shoot threes and protect the rim all that often at center, even though every team wants one. There just aren't that many to go around. So if you actually can hit that three, maybe you're looking at like a Brook Lopez, a modern Brook Lopez type, where he brings a little bit of post up, a little bit of drop defense, that traditional big man on both sides, play finisher, hit the three. I mean, there's value in Orlando for that one too at 25. That's another name to watch. I'd say Danny Wolf, Walter Clayton, Ryan Kalkbrenner, Javon Small, and Cedric Coward are some of the names that I highlighted as well. And I know you're a fan of Cedric to Orlando as a potential fit as well for 25. Yeah, that some of the names we've hit on, I think, would probably be my answer. Like I mean, Danny Wolf, obviously, if he's projected that far down. Uh, just I'm just a big believer in his upside, and I'll just leave it at that. I think his floor is probably a little underrated too because he's got the footwork defensively, the mobility, a little bit of help defense, rim protection. I think he'll be a mobile four that like worst case to me, like will kind of look like a Joe Ingles or a Hito Turkoglu. Shout out J. Kyle Mann with that amazing comp that really painted a picture for me. I think he's a 6'10" ball handler who can run a high volume of pick and rolls, hit step back threes, hit a catch and shoot three, score at the rim, shows really good footwork, can defend fours, some fives. Just a lot to like. So I'm very high on that upside and kind of, especially in this draft where there's so many unknowns, and it kind of seems like every prospect that is in the top 15 has like one flaw that could really be an Achilles heel for them. And there's just not enough to really trust any single one, I suppose. But you can talk that's what makes the draft fun. It just takes one team to talk themselves into somebody. I'm not sure if you have my high low compared to Swish right in front of you, if any names popped out on there, but Asa Newell would be my other guy. The versatility, the play finisher. I think Asa Newell at 10 is kind of where my spot changes from I'm hunting potential above that. And at around 10 is where it's like, okay, now I'm looking for the high floor, good basketball player who can fit many roles and help teams win a little bit more so than the potential, because I'm just not sure I buy the potential at that point more than I buy the possible failures, and the risk kind of outweighs the reward for me starting at about 10 is kind of where the mindset switches up. Were there some other names there that popped out on that
You
list?
had Jameer Watkins. You're the top on Jameer Watkins too, which I like that take. He's
Hey,
someone just going through making the ratings for this board. I gave him like a 50 plus for everything. Just he's like no glaring flaws, which was
yeah,
cool.
like a dynamic two-way wing. Probably a little bias on my part. Florida State got to represent. I got it here somewhere, but not the best situation there either. Kind of a weird situation between the coaches and kind of what all the drama, let's just say, that happened this season between some of the coaches and players and this past season. So, he could very well be kind of a blank slate and a blank slate, but an athlete of his like magnitude is another guy where it's kind of like Thoreau, or maybe it's a little more like Drake Powell, that Drake Powell buzz. Like if you just hit a certain level of athleticism at a certain size, certain length, and you have any ball, like, and you can dribble a basketball, like, you're probably going to look at you at the very least, because people can talk themselves into potential. But I think the hardest part of this is defining what realistic potential looks like for guys. Like we hit on Maluach earlier. The potential could be in that 3-point shot. It could be in the high end. It could be the best rim runner on one end and one of the best defensive rim protectors on the other end who can also hit that 3-point shot. Those are all realistic development pathways for him as like a defensive anchor, high-end rim roller, maybe an all-star the way DeAndre Jordan and Clint Capella got that kind of buzz in their peaks with a little bit of 3-point shot. It's probably not realistic potential to say he's going to look like Giannis in 5 years, dribbling the ball all over the place, going coast to coast, that sort of thing. So I think that challenge it can be obvious for some players, but that's how we get things like here's a blank slate wing who can't dribble, pass, or shoot. So therefore he has potential to do all those things because he can't do any of them. To me, it's more like you got to show a little bit of something, a free throw percentage that shows you have a work ethic, a little bit of touch on a floater, just something to give us a little bit of an indicator that you will develop as a shooter down the road. But this was really cool to just dive into the class here. Can't wait for the 2025 NBA draft right around the corner. Any parting thoughts? Any different storylines you're excited to see play out, or kind of like a draft pick fit that you really hope kind of works out for a player to get their best opportunity, and just anything you're hoping to see come Thursday night. Also, the first double draft day. We got first round Wednesday, second round Thursday. That'll be interesting to see how that all plays out.
I'm just manifesting Collin Murray-Boyles to the Nets. That's my main
there it
focus.
Is.
Yeah. So I'll be happy if that happens. So.
And I definitely agree with that strategy of just stay put in this draft, or like you could probably trade back even and still get a pretty good player in the same realm of talent tier value wise. And that's what's cool about the draft board is like myself, I've seen a lot of guys rank guys as high as 3 and as low as 20, 25. And I think that's kind of how this board plays out this year, where it's the eye of the beholder. And that being said, I do think that there are bankable talents. Like Trey Johnson is going to be a walking bucket shooter day one. VJ Edgecombe is going to be one of the best athletes day one. Like CMB and Sorber's defensive instincts are going to jump off the page day one. Like no one's going to get in front of Derek Queen to take a charge on day one because of that downhill force. Like we do know some stuff that will translate. And I think those traits are what make them lottery picks to begin with. Just the idea, like there are a few known factors, and the potential that comes off of that known is what makes this a fun exercise. But thanks a lot for taking the time, man. It's been a ton of fun just diving into the Swish Theory board with you, hearing about all the different filters. So shout out the whole team and Ross with the creative design, and just can't wait. Let's see it. CMB to the Nets, man. What a time. Let's see it happen.
Yeah, it's gonna happen. Thanks so much for having me. Yeah, it's been a great time.
Absolutely, man. Appreciate you taking the time. Went a little long today, and I can't wait to see how the draft plays out. Have a good one, Matt. Let's do it. It's draft time. It's draft season. We're back.
With Ryan. Learning Basketball is a Swish Theory podcast hosted from Beyond the Arcade. Hey, that's me. You can find my work on Twitter, YouTube, Substack, and check out the team's writing at theswishtheory.com.